He found her crying by the fence, dust on her dress and sorrow in her voice as she said, "I can clean and cook. I just need a place to sleep." But instead of seeing a burden, the rancher saw a soul worth saving and gave her more than shelter. He gave her back her worth. The October wind cuts across the Wyoming prairie like a blade, carrying with it the promise of an early winter. Eli Calder pulls his coat tighter as he guides his horse toward home, the setting sun painting the endless grassland in shades of gold and amber. After 38 years on this earth, 20 of them spent working this isolated ranch, he's learned to read the sky like scripture. And tonight's sky is promising trouble. What he doesn't expect to find is the trouble that's already waiting for him. There, pressed against his fence like she's trying to disappear into the weathered wood, stands a young woman. Her dark hair hangs in tangles around her face, and her feet are bare despite the cold. She's wearing a faded blue dress that might have been pretty once, but now it's torn at the hem and stained with mud and worse things. She's crying, not the dramatic sobbing of someone seeking attention, but the quiet, desperate tears of a person who's reached the absolute end of her rope. When she hears his horse approaching, she looks up with eyes so full of fear that Eli's first instinct is to raise his hands and show he means no harm. "Please," she says, her voice barely above a whisper, "I don't want any trouble. I can clean and cook. I just need a place to sleep, just for tonight." Eli dismounts slowly, his weathered hands gentle on the reins. He's lived alone for so long that he's forgotten how to talk to people, especially frightened young women who appear at his fence like ghosts from someone else's nightmare. But there's something in her voice, a dignity beneath the desperation, that stops him from simply pointing her toward town. "You hurt?" he asks, noticing how she holds her left arm close to her body, how she favors her right foot when she shifts her weight. She shakes her head quickly, but Eli's seen enough injured animals to recognize the lie. Her hands are cracked and bleeding, her knuckles raw from cold and work, and maybe other things she's not ready to talk about. "Got a spare room in the bunkhouse," he says, surprising himself with the offer. "Clean bed, warm blankets. You can stay the night, figure out what comes next in the morning." The relief that washes over her face is so profound that Eli has to look away. When was the last time someone showed this woman basic human kindness? "Thank you," she whispers. "I'm Willa Thorne." "Eli Calder," he replies, already wondering what kind of hell she's running from. If this start caught you off guard, what's coming next will go straight to the heart. Stay with me. The kitchen of the Calder Ranch house hasn't seen a woman's presence in over a decade. Not since Eli's mother passed and left him to tend this land alone. Now Willa sits at his worn wooden table, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, like it's the most precious thing in the world. She eats the simple meal he's prepared: beans, cornbread, and salt pork, with the careful precision of someone who's learned not to take food for granted. Every bite is measured, deliberate, as if she's afraid the plate might disappear if she shows too much hunger. "Bunkhouse has a good stove," Eli says, breaking the silence that stretched between them like a wire. "Gets cold out there, but it's private. Nobody bothers you there." Willa nods, still not meeting his eyes. She keeps glancing toward the windows, toward the door, like she's expecting someone to come crashing through at any moment. Her whole body is coiled with tension, ready to run. There's something refined about the way she holds her cup, the careful way she breaks her cornbread. This isn't a woman born to hardship. She's learned it recently, and learned it hard. Eli finds himself remembering fragments of a different life. Sunday dinners with music drifting from the parlor, lace curtains catching afternoon sunlight, the sound of a woman's laughter echoing through rooms that knew warmth and joy. But those memories don't belong to his house, they belong to Willa. Written in the careful way she arranges her napkin, the unconscious grace with which she moves, despite her obvious pain. "I don't need much," she says suddenly, her voice startling them both in the quiet kitchen. Just somewhere safe to sleep. I'll earn my keep. I promise. I'm good with cooking, cleaning, mending. I won't be any trouble. The way she says it breaks something inside Eli's chest. Like trouble is something she's been accused of being. Something she's been made to feel guilty for simply by existing. No rush to decide anything, he tells her. Take tonight. We'll talk in the morning. He shows her to the small room attached to the main barn, clean, warm, with a narrow bed and a washstand. It's simple but comfortable. More luxury than she's known in months by the look of her relief. That night, as Eli sits on his porch, listening to the wind sing through the grass, he hears it, quiet sobbing from the direction of the bunkhouse. Not the tears of physical pain, but the deep, soul-breaking weeping of someone who's finally found a moment of safety and can afford to let her guard down. He doesn't go to her. Some grief is too private to intrude upon, and he suspects Willa Thorne has more than her share of tears to shed. Dawn breaks clear and cold, painting the prairie in shades of rose and gold. Eli wakes to find Willa already up and moving around his porch, a broom in her hands as she sweeps away the autumn leaves that have gathered overnight. She's still wearing the same torn dress, but she's washed her face and braided her hair back, revealing a face that might be pretty if it weren't marked by exhaustion and something that looks suspiciously like fear. There's a purple bruise on her left cheek that she tries to hide by turning away when he approaches. Didn't need to start working yet, Eli says, accepting the cup of coffee she offers him. It's better than anything he's made for himself in years strong, without being bitter, perfect temperature. I like to be useful, Willa replies. But there's something in her voice that suggests usefulness isn't a preference, but a survival strategy. Like she's learned that idle hands invite punishment. As the morning progresses, Eli notices the way she moves carefully, deliberately, like someone whose body has been taught to expect pain. She limps slightly on her left leg, and when she reaches for something on a high shelf, she winces and favors her right shoulder. The bruises aren't fresh, but they're not old either. Someone put hands on this woman recently, and not gently. When she's helping him tend the horses, a sudden noise from the barn startles her so badly that she drops the bucket she's carrying and backs against the wall, arms raised defensively. The bucket clatters against the ground, and Willa flinches like the sound is a gunshot. Sorry, she gasps, scrambling to pick up the scattered oats. I'm sorry, I'll clean it up, I didn't mean. Easy, Eli says, keeping his voice low and steady like he would with a spooked animal. No harm done, just oats on the ground. But he sees the way her hands shake as she cleans up the mess. The way she keeps glancing at him like she's waiting for the blow that doesn't come. Someone has taught Willa Thorne to expect violence for simple mistakes, and the knowledge sits heavy in Eli's stomach like bad food. You don't have to tell me anything, he says later, when they're sitting on the porch with their evening coffee. Not yet, not ever, if you don't want to. But you're safe here, Willa. Safe as I can make you. For the first time since she arrived, Willa looks directly at him. Her eyes are the color of storm clouds, gray-green and full of weather. There's intelligence there, and strength buried under layers of hurt. Thank you, she whispers. And this time when she says it, Eli believes she might actually be starting to hope. A week passes, and Willa begins to settle into the rhythm of ranch life like she was born to it. Eli watches her work and realizes that beneath the fear and exhaustion, there's a competence that speaks of good breeding and careful education. Her hands know their way around a kitchen in ways that go beyond simple survival. She makes bread that rises perfect and golden, seasons stew with herbs she somehow conjures from his sparse pantry, and sets his table with an attention to detail that suggests she once lived in a house where such things mattered. Where'd you learn to cook like this? Eli asks one evening, savoring a meal that's the best he's eaten in years. Willa pauses, her fork halfway to her mouth, and for a moment her eyes go distant. My mother, she says finally. She taught me. Said a woman should know how to make a house feel like home. There's longing in her voice and loss. Whatever home she came from is gone now, burned away by whatever brought her to his fence crying and barefoot in the October cold. She's mended his torn curtains with careful stitches, transforming raggedness into something approaching beauty. As she works, she hums unconsciously fragments of lullabies and hymns that speak of Sunday mornings and gentle hands braiding hair and voices raised in harmony around a parlor piano. "You sing?" Eli asks, startling her out of her reverie. "I used to," Willa says, her hands stilling on the fabric. Before things changed." She won't say more, but Eli can fill in some of the blanks. She came from money, from education, from a life where music and laughter were daily gifts rather than distant memories. Something or someone destroyed that life and left her with nothing but the clothes on her back and bruises that speak of hands raised in anger. The breakthrough comes on a Thursday afternoon, when Eli returns from checking the fence line to find Willa in the barn, grooming his old mare with gentle, practiced strokes. The horse, who's skittish around strangers, stands calm and content under Willa's ministrations. "She likes you," Eli observes. "Animals are easier than people," Willa replies, running her hand down the mare's neck. "They don't pretend to be something they're not." It's the most philosophical thing she's said since arriving, and Eli realizes that Willa Thorne is starting to trust him enough to let him see glimpses of the woman she was before fear became her closest companion. That evening, when he hands her coffee, their fingers brush for just a moment. She doesn't flinch away, doesn't assume the contact is a prelude to violence. It's a small thing, but Eli recognizes progress when he sees it. The stranger arrives on a Tuesday morning, riding a fine horse, and wearing clothes too clean for a man who claims to be just passing through. He's got smooth hands and a smooth voice, the kind of man who's never done an honest day's work, but expects the world to bend around his wants. Name's Charles Morrison. He tells Eli, dismounting with the casual arrogance of someone accustomed to being welcome everywhere. "I'm looking for someone, a young woman who might have come through this area recently." From his coat, Morrison produces a piece of paper, a sketch done in charcoal and ink. The face staring back at Eli is unmistakably Willa, though the artist has captured her in better times, before fear and hardship carved lines around her eyes. "My wife," Morrison explains, his voice carrying just the right note of concern to fool someone who isn't paying attention. "She's been unwell, not thinking clearly. We've been worried sick since she wandered off." Eli studies the sketch, then looks up at Morrison with eyes that reveal nothing. In the barn, he knows Willa is listening, probably pressed against the wall, with her heart hammering against her ribs. "Haven't seen her," Eli lies smoothly, "but I'll keep an eye out." "You try the sheriff in town?" Morrison's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Oh yes, Sheriff Hayes is helping with the search. Poor Willa. She gets these episodes, delusions. Sometimes she imagines things that never happened, tells stories that aren't true. We just want to get her home where she belongs, where she can get the help she needs." The way he says it, like Willa's sanity is questionable, like her voice can't be trusted, makes Eli's jaw clench. He's heard this song before, the melody of men who break things and then claim the broken pieces were always worthless. "I'll be sure to let you know if I see anything," Eli says, his tone final. "Safe travels." Morrison lingers, his eyes scanning the ranch buildings with an intensity that suggests he's not entirely convinced by Eli's denial. But eventually he mounts his horse and rides away, leaving threats hanging in the air like smoke. That night, Willa finally tells him the truth. "He forced me to marry him," she whispers, her voice breaking on the words. "When my father's farm failed, Morrison paid our debts in exchange for my hand. I was so young, so grateful to help my family. I didn't understand what I was agreeing to until it was too late." She trails off, her hands twisted in her lap, like she's trying to hold herself together through sheer will. I ran, she continues. Left everything behind and just ran. But I don't want to keep running forever, Eli. I'm so tired of being afraid. Eli reaches across the table and covers her hands with his own, carefully, gently, giving her every chance to pull away. She doesn't. Then we'll make sure you don't have to, he says, and means every word. The weeks that follow bring a gradual transformation, like watching winter slowly give way to spring. Willa begins to move through the ranch with growing confidence, her shoulders straightening, her steps becoming surer. The constant vigilance that marked her first days starts to ease, replaced by something that might eventually become peace. Eli teaches her to ride his gentlest horse, a gray gelding named Dusty who's got more patience than speed. At first, Willa grips the saddle horn like it's the only thing keeping her from falling into an abyss. But gradually, she learns to trust the horse's steady gait and her own growing skill. You're a natural, Eli tells her, as she guides Dusty around the corral with increasing confidence. Horse knows it too. He likes you. I used to ride, Willa admits, a smile ghosting across her features. When I was young, before my father lost everything, we had a mare named Sunshine. She was beautiful, all golden with a white star on her forehead. It's another glimpse into the life she lost, and Eli treasures each one like small gifts. The woman Charles Morrison is hunting doesn't exist anymore if she ever did. In her place is someone stronger, someone who's learning to trust her own strength. The breakthrough comes during an unexpected thunderstorm that traps them both in the barn while they're tending the animals. Rain hammers against the roof like bullets, and lightning splits the sky in brilliant, terrifying displays. Willa should be afraid. Storms mean being trapped, vulnerable, at the mercy of forces beyond her control. Instead, she laughs. It's a rusty sound, like machinery that's been idle too long finally creaking back to life. But it's genuine, bubbling up from somewhere deep inside her that Morrison's cruelty never quite managed to reach. I used to love storms, she says, her voice filled with wonder at her own reaction. When I was little, I'd sit by the window and watch the lightning. My mother said I was touched in the head, but I thought they were beautiful. What else did you used to love? Eli asks, genuinely curious about the woman she's been and might be again. Willa is quiet for a long moment, listening to the rain. I wanted to be a school teacher, she says finally. I loved books, loved learning. I thought I could make a difference, help children see that the world was bigger than whatever small corner they were born into. Still could, Eli says. Town's always looking for good teachers. Mrs. Henderson's getting on in years, probably wouldn't mind the help. The look Willa gives him is so full of hope and disbelief that it nearly breaks his heart. You think I could still do that? After everything? I think you can do anything you set your mind to, Eli replies, and watches something fragile and precious begin to bloom in her eyes. Morrison returns on a cold November morning, but this time he doesn't come alone. Two hard-faced men flank him, their hands resting casually on their gun belts in a way that's meant to be intimidating. They ride into Eli's yard like they own it, like the law and decency are just suggestions they're free to ignore. Mr. Calder, Morrison says, his voice carrying none of the false courtesy from his first visit. I believe you've been harboring my property. I've come to collect what belongs to me. From the house comes the sound of a door slamming, and Eli knows Willa has seen them coming. Good. He told her what to do if Morrison ever returned. Bar the door. Stay hidden. Don't come out no matter what she hears. Don't believe I have anything of yours, Eli replies, his hand moving slowly toward the rifle propped against the porch rail. This is private property, and you're not welcome here. Morrison's laugh is ugly, full of the kind of confidence that comes from never facing real consequences for his actions. That little whore has been filling your head with lies, hasn't she? Poor thing. She's delusional. Always has been. Makes up stories about being mistreated, about running away. Truth is, she's my wife, legally bound, and I'm taking her home. The lady says different. Eli says, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. Says she's never been married to you, that you bought her from her father like livestock. That make you feel like a big man, Morrison? Buying frightened girls? The mask slips then, revealing the cruel, petty tyrant underneath Morrison's civilized veneer. What I do with my property is none of your concern, rancher. Willa belongs to me, and I'm taking her back. We can do this easy, or we can do it hard. One of Morrison's men shifts in his saddle, his hand moving closer to his weapon. But before the situation can escalate further, the sound of approaching hoofbeats cuts through the tension. Eli's neighbors, Jake and Samuel Harrison, ride into the yard with their own rifles ready. "Morning, Eli," Jake calls out, his eyes never leaving Morrison and his companions. "Thought we heard voices. Everything all right here?" The odds have shifted now. 3 against 3 instead of 3 against 1. Morrison's eyes narrow as he calculates his chances and finds them wanting. He's a bully, and bullies prefer victims who can't fight back. "This isn't over," Morrison snarls, wheeling his horse around. "That woman belongs to me, and I'll have her back. The law's on my side." As the 3 men ride away, Eli releases a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. From inside the house, he can hear Willa crying not from fear this time, but from relief. "Thank you," he tells the Harrison brothers. "Don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." Neighbors look out for each other. Samuel replies, "Besides, that Morrison fellow rubbed us wrong from the start. Any man who calls a woman property isn't worth the powder to blow him up." That evening, as they sit by the fire, Willa looks at Eli with eyes full of gratitude and something deeper. "You called me family," she says softly. "When you were talking to Morrison, I heard you through the door." "Did I?" Eli asks, though he remembers every word of the confrontation. "Yes," Willa whispers. "No one's ever called me family before. Not really." Eli reaches for her hand, and this time she doesn't hesitate to take it. "Well, you are now," he says simply. "Family's not just blood, Willa. Sometimes it's choosing to stand by someone when the world tells you to walk away." In the days following Morrison's visit, Willa struggles with guilt that sits on her shoulders like a lead blanket. She moves through her daily tasks with mechanical precision, but Eli can see the weight of responsibility crushing down on her spirit like stones. "I should leave," she says one evening, her voice barely audible over the crackling fire. "I've brought danger to your home, put you and your neighbors at risk. Morrison won't give up, he'll keep coming back, and next time he might bring more men." Eli sets down his coffee cup and turns to face her fully, his weathered features serious in the firelight. "Willa, look at me." She raises her eyes reluctantly, still expecting judgment, still waiting for the moment when his kindness will run out and she'll be alone again. "You didn't bring trouble here," Eli says firmly. "You found your way out of it. There's a difference, and it matters. Morrison's the one choosing to make this difficult. That's on him, not you. But if something happens to you because of me?" "Nothing's going to happen to me," Eli interrupts gently. "And even if it did, that would be my choice to make. I'm a grown man, Willa. I can decide for myself what's worth fighting for." The conversation marks a turning point between them. Over the following weeks, Willa begins to shed the last of her defensive posture, the constant readiness to flee or apologize for existing. She starts expressing opinions, making suggestions about improving the ranch, sharing memories from her childhood, without the shadow of shame that once accompanied such revelations. "I've been thinking about what you said," she tells him one morning as they work together to repair a section of fence damaged by the wind. "About teaching. Do you really think Mrs. Henderson would consider taking on help?" "I think she'd be grateful for it," Eli replies. "Town's growing, more families settling every year. Could use someone with your education and patience. Willa is quiet for a moment, hammering a nail with more force than necessary. I used to dream about having my own classroom, she admits. My own students to encourage, to help find their way in the world. It seems impossible now, after everything, but dreams don't die easy, Eli finishes. Sometimes they just wait for the right moment to grow again. That evening, Willa cooks a feast, not just the simple, practical meals they've been sharing, but something special. Roasted chicken with herbs, fresh bread, apple pie made from fruit she traded for in town. She sets the table with his mother's good china, lights candles, and for the first time since she arrived, takes her place at the head of the table instead of the corner where she usually sits. What's the occasion? Eli asks, though the answer is written in her proud posture, in the way she meets his eyes without flinching. I'm not running anymore, Willa says simply. Whatever comes next, I'm facing it here, with you, if you'll have me. Eli reaches across the table and takes her hand, calloused fingers intertwining with hers. Willa Thorne, I'd be honored to face whatever comes next with you. For the first time in months, Willa's smile reaches her eyes. Spring arrives early that year, painting the prairie in shades of green and gold that seem to mirror the hope growing in Willa's heart. 3 months have passed since Morrison's last visit, and while Willa still checks the horizon occasionally, the desperate vigilance that once defined her days has faded into simple awareness. She's changed, blossomed like a flower that finally has enough water and sunlight to remember what it was meant to be. Her hair shines with health, her skin has lost the pallor of constant fear, and when she laughs, which happens more often now, the sound fills the ranch house with warmth that has nothing to do with the fire in the hearth. This morning, she stands before the mirror in her room, adjusting the second-hand bonnet she bought in town last week. It's simple blue cotton with white ribbons. Nothing fancy, but it makes her feel like a proper lady again. More importantly, it makes her feel like herself. Not Morrison's victim or Eli's charity case, but Willa Thorne, woman of worth and dignity. Ready? Eli asks from the doorway, offering his arm like she's a queen instead of a former runaway. Ready, Willa confirms, and they walk together toward the wagon that will take them to town. Cedar Falls has grown since her arrival, new families settling on the fertile land, children playing in streets that echo with the sounds of building and hope. As they drive down Main Street, Willa notices the stares and whispers that follow their passage. The town knows her story now, or thinks it does, but she no longer cares what conclusions people draw. She sits beside Eli, with her back straight and her chin high, no longer the broken creature who once begged for shelter by his fence. She's earned her place here through months of honest work and gradual healing, and she won't apologize for surviving, for choosing to build something better from the ashes of what Morrison tried to destroy. Mrs. Henderson is expecting us at 2. Eli reminds her as they park outside the general store. You nervous? Terrified, Willa admits with a laugh that sounds nothing like the frightened whisper of months ago, but good terrified, the kind that means you're about to do something that matters. The afternoon meeting goes better than Willa dared hope. Mrs. Henderson, the town's aging schoolteacher, welcomes the prospect of help with obvious relief. There are 23 children of school age in Cedar Falls now, ranging from 6 to 16, and managing them all while teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, and deportment has become more than one woman can handle alone. You'll start Monday, Mrs. Henderson declares after an hour of conversation. The children will love having someone young and energetic to learn from. And I'll love having someone to help with the older boys. They're getting too big for me to manage when they get unruly. As they drive home in the gathering dusk, Willa feels lighter than air, as if she might float away if Eli weren't there to anchor her to earth. She's going to be a teacher. She's going to have students, a purpose, a future that extends beyond simply surviving from one day to the next. Thank you, she tells Eli as they reach the fence where it all began, for saving me, for giving me a chance to save myself. Eli brings the wagon to a stop and turns to face her, his expression serious but warm. Willa, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think before you answer. Her heart skips a beat, but not from fear this time. From hope so fierce it takes her breath away. If you want to stay, Eli continues, his voice careful but determined. If you want this to be your home permanently, then this land is yours too. Not as my guest or my employee, but as my partner in everything. Willa looks out across the rolling prairie that has become her sanctuary, at the house where she learned to trust again, at the man who gave her back her faith in human kindness. The wind carries the scent of new grass and wildflowers, the promise of seasons yet to come. I think I finally stopped running, she whispers, her hand finding his in the space between them. Yes, Eli. Yes to all of it. As the stars begin to appear overhead, they sit together on the wagon seat, hands clasped, hearts full, watching their future unfold across the endless Wyoming sky. If you thought these were crazy, you won't want to miss what happens in this next video.